Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade today with Towers at AGHASBA, a little starter obvious tips guide for players that are probably just still downloading the game right now, or you've just gone and started it but you're still a bit perplexed about what you should really be doing or focusing on in the first stages, particularly on the starter island. Although I'm going to show you how you unlock mounts towards the end of the video, as well as teleporting and how to invite your friends. I've got so much content incoming. I've probably already got the first 30 minutes of gameplay out. I've already done maybe a live stream or live as you're watching this for the first time. So do make sure you're subscribed, got notification bell ding to see tons more Towers at AGHASBA content. And let's go. Big starter obvious tips you need to know. Where to go ahead and place your first farm. This is going to be the center of your activities for the next couple of hours, so it's important that you make it accessible and somewhat easy to move around. I tried placing mine in a bunch of different places, see if I could get some more height, but in the end used the big flat spaces. This entire little island that you're on is pretty much just a tutorial phase. Although it lasts quite a while and you can teleport back to here eventually, there is much bigger land to go and explore and make more of your home. That said, remember there are 3 different ecosystems that you will grow, so this could potentially be your farming location for your whole run, while the other locations you'll discover, they might be for the other ecos. Also do make sure you go and talk to every NPC, especially if they've got a little icon above their heads. It can be hard to miss sometimes, and there's definitely a few times that I didn't realise progression was tied to speaking to someone. Some of the NPCs aren't directly inside the farming little plateau here either. You may have to go and explore some of the cliffs in and around the areas. You should be able to see them on the mini-map as well as the regular map, but yeah, I did miss this a few times. If you seem a bit stuck or don't know what to do, then obviously check your journal and the field orders, and that should give you a bit more direction, and keep revisiting places. I often found new resources spawning up where I planted my colossi tree, so it's always worth double checking. It's a pretty barren landscape with not many resources other than berries, clay, maybe some grass and dead trees. Remember, the whole point of towers is that as you progress, you encourage more resources to start spawning. So for now, concentrate heavily on picking up stones, never really bypass picking one up, as you need quite a lot to craft your tools, which when they break, they do disappear at the moment and you can't repair them. So it's worth noting that just before they're about to break, go ahead and scrap them and get some scrap pieces, as I'm sure it's going to be a lot of use later on. So you don't actually need food to survive, but you will need it to replenish your health. And obviously small berries and other items will only give you a limited amount. Once you start cooking them, you'll get more bonuses, and more later game foods will give you more health. You'll see lots of the berry bushes around, as well as roots that you'll be able to dig up with a shovel. I would say eat the roots for the main part when you're a bit low. You can get meat from killing some of the creatures, and you will be able to cook it eventually, but you still won't be able to make it until you get actually a bunch of salt or mushrooms. And I'm not sure why, maybe it was a bug or maybe it is just part of progression, but the campfire didn't actually appear until I was a good few hours into the game. So if you have happened to kill a bunch of creatures, you could go ahead and eat the raw meat. It won't replenish your health as much, but it's still better than utilising too many of your berries. You really want to be saving your berries for maybe feeding lots of the creatures that will start spawning around your colossi tree. They'll eat a ton of different stuff. Some will require mushrooms, some will require some meat, and some will just like some roots. But I found the roots were the easiest thing to get loads of, and more creatures requested berries rather than roots, so it's definitely worth saving them. And don't sit there waiting for creatures to go ahead and eat. Just literally, as soon as you've got enough that you might want to come over and chuck, go ahead and do it and then come back later. You'll get the amity, which is basically a resource that you need to progress by helping grow certain trees, fill certain orders. The more good things you do, like feeding creatures, planting trees and plants, you'll gain more amity, as well as healing creatures, which is probably the best and biggest way. You won't get this at first, but as soon as you start getting more and more creatures spawn, you'll notice some of them got broken bones. They'll basically ask for certain berries or certain resources to heal them, but it is worth doing because you will get a ton of amity. All them green blobs and stuff coming towards me, that is the amity flowing to me. And then you'll notice in the top right hand side, the number usually appears when you get some new ones or you lose some. Of course, the more that you kill creatures, you go ahead and harvest plants or chop down trees, you lose some of the amity. Generally, you'll always gain more for feeding a creature or planting a tree than you will losing or killing. but it's definitely something to consider. You'll need hundreds of amity to really progress through the first stages of the tutorial, so the more that you're feeding these creatures quickly, the better that you'll be able to grow it as you're working and adventuring doing other stuff. Creatures do have a little bit of a cooldown before they eat again, so yeah, just chuck the food on the floor near your Colossi seed area. And for that reason, make sure you put your Colossi tree seed in a good location, not somewhere really high or far away. You do have to place it a certain distance away from your farm. I came across this ruins of a theatre and I thought it'd be really cool if I could overtake it and make it full of green and grass and stuff. But it is up a little bit of a hill and it can become pretty frustrating having to run back and forth between my farm and here, as you'll be doing that a lot. Ideally, you want a big flat space, open area for your tree, your initial one at least. You will get more Colossi seeds that you'll be able to plant, but you'll be back here over and over again to fulfill the orders that you get from the creepy dude, as well as obviously feeding all the creatures that spawn and gathering some of the new resources that pop up. It generally does make this area a bit safer as well. You won't find as many of the little withered little creepy dudes running around. But yeah, once you've got to the point where you can put it down, as I said, try and get as close to your farm as possible, but also in a good spot. Also make sure you've maxed out any possible tree planting that you can, or plants. There is a limit. As it grows your tree, you'll be able to plant even more of the other trees that you'll come across. But you want to keep this at its maximum wherever possible, and then as soon as you've gone ahead and harvested any trees in the area because you need some of the resin, make sure you go ahead and plant any seeds that you've acquired pretty much straight away. Eventually your Colossi tree will give you all sorts of different resources, including cotton, maybe more mushrooms than you could shake a stick at, and maybe even more importantly, resources from the creatures once they start to feed. This is the only issue with maybe just dumping a bunch of food, that sometimes you might forget where you actually chucked it. But basically every time you come back to revisit, just run around spamming the pickup button, and who knows what you'll pick up, including things like milk from some of the hoopla little donkeys here. Tons of dung, which you need for all sorts of things like compost, fertilizer and growing your farms. And you can get rarer drops as well, like certain pieces of fur or maybe scales from certain creatures too. Some creatures are meant to only eat certain resources that you get from other creatures, so that's another thing that you should be doing, making sure that you do chuck some of the new stuff that you get down, and double check once you get the scanner exactly what that creature needs. This is why I call them obvious tips, because that's pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people might keep forgetting to maybe scan the creatures. And if you're wondering why you can't ride the donkeys yet, I'll come to that in a while. And just a reminder that common seeds are what will plant the regular slim little trees that you'll basically get wood, bark and stuff from. Then you've got the temperate seeds, which will grow more defined trees that you'll get resin. If you're running low on types of seeds like the temperate ones, or you want to see if you can get a hold of a rare seed, then you will find these pollination pods scattered around near cliffs. And they simply just convert some of the other basic seeds or pods that you found into more advanced or more useful ones. I would say don't pass up the opportunity though to go ahead and do this. You can use mushroom spores to go ahead and obviously plant and get more mushrooms, but also use them to get more strange seeds. You'll only have one slot in the beginning stages, but eventually you'll be able to unlock 3, so you'll be able to get even 3 times the amount of seeds. So moving away a bit from the Colossi and obviously getting resources, got to look at the dangers around. You've obviously got these little withered little spiderlings running around, and you've got these big massive globs that you're meant to take care of. Obviously take care of any of the little spiders around, there should be at least 3 of them, and you want to be using hopefully a spear and a bow and arrow that you'll get by completing some of the combat quests from the NPC. Again, another NPC that might not appear directly straight away, or will be on a cliff a little bit further out depending on where you've put your farm. Should have some challenges for you, like going ahead and scouting out a bunch of different creatures, and then maybe also killing a few. But obviously it's well worth doing, because as said, the prize for doing so is a spear and the bow. So if you're having trouble with these little critters getting you just because you're trying to kill them with your axe all the time, then make sure you go and fulfill the combat missions as soon as possible. The spear is more useful for fishing perhaps, although it does still do good damage. Also you do unlock a sword. Obviously dying does have repercussions. You'll basically lose any of your big health, meaning you're rinsing through your food. So you could potentially play the game for like I did for a while, with just like the bare minimum of health, but it did mean it was a bit more risky every time I come across an enemy. as playing this way meant I wasn't going to lose any health because I didn't have any to begin with, and thus I was saving on food. You can't directly craft any armors at the beginning stages of the game, it's simply just rewarded to you. You will get like a vest or a top eventually, but that's pretty much it for the first few hours. And maybe a mask, but it didn't seem to be giving me any more different type of health or any extras. And you obviously want to use your radial dial that you'll have access to. You can assign any kind of weapon or food to it, so make sure you do that as well. So as said, certain resources will start spawning more as you start progressing. I did find that I couldn't find much iron even along the coast where I think it's meant to be until I'd got to a certain point. That could just be me not maybe opening my eyes enough, but some of the rocks are hard to spot. In fact, the problem is so many of the rocks look like they should be able to be harvested. Anyhow, any with this sort of green, maybe slight bluish tint, that will just be regular stone and obviously some of the flint that you can get from it sometimes, and you've got a rarer chance of picking up gold dust, which you might need for a certain quest later. You won't have much use for it in the early stages, but coal can be found in these small little mounds, and again I found these closer to the coast alongside higher cliffs, and though it didn't kill me, I got shot by one of the withered. There are a lot of resources you simply won't be able to go ahead and get until you get iron tools, and you won't be unlocking them for a good while, so don't worry too much about this. Just maybe try and make a mental note of where you found some of this stuff. But anything with stone, then you definitely want to be digging it up and picking up anything new that you come across. Iron's got more of a coppery or sort of reddish tint to the rocks. And again, I found these more on the coastline towards the bridge that you have to repair to get to the mainland and basically leave the tutorial area. It does look like iron also still can give you flint as well as maybe chances of that gold dust. Obviously the game is very time based, certain things will take literally in-game minutes or up to an hour to go ahead and craft or come to fruition. For example, this fat tree that I managed to get a seed for, I was trying to grow it eventually once I completed some of the quests to grow the main colossi seed, and it gave me this as a reward, and I was all hopeful that I would get something really cool from it. But instead there's 2 or 3 of these bulbs that you have to go and basically donate 100 amity to each time. A pink flower should spawn and then you've got to wait again, maybe another 20 minutes or again up to an hour for it to then be able to donate the rest. So in that respect, you kind of want to play towers with your fingers in everything, running around a little bit and just checking on stuff to make sure there isn't any new resources that have popped up inside your big colossi area. Once you get the ability to have a farm and put down your own crop plots, make sure they're always filled with just regular common seeds so that you can get tons of lettuce, as that can actually be used to make a pretty good healing item with salad eventually. A bunch of creatures also eat it, and it's good as a renewable food source pretty quickly if you're growing it and constantly checking. You get free crop plots with a regular farm building that you place down, but you can place these additional crop plots around. It does look like there's some sort of maybe mechanic where you're meant to add a couple more to progress something or unlock maybe an upgrade for it, but it wasn't working for me when I was playing. It kept saying 0 out of 2, even though I'd gone and placed another 2 crop plots. But in terms of progression, definitely take notice of the upgrades that you might need for some of your buildings. Majority of these buildings are going to be converting stations where they will just turn one resource into another or help you grow certain crops. And remember, you can only see the special build menu when you're close to your original farm tower. So if you want to check on upgrades or what storage or what things you need, then yeah, do remember that. I didn't really see much need in going ahead and placing more than just one of these regular farming little villages down. Pretty much one plus a couple extra crop plots was more than enough for me all throughout the first stages of the game. There's obviously no rush. If you're enjoying just chilling and placing down lots of different farms, then you can do so. Remember, there are decorative buildings and items that will raise your standing, which hopefully unlock better items and more rewards later. You get a whole bunch of them to go and start placing down as soon as you get your crafting bench. So if you really want to start making your farm look pretty, you can totally use some of these, but these won't give you any resources. Well, none of the early game ones that I placed down did, at least. Each one will tell you what kind of standing number it will give you though, in terms of reputation for the rest of your village. You can pick them up and plonk them down without any worry about any kind of cost, and could be a nice little challenge between you and your friends about who can get the most standing level. Speaking of friends, as well as teleporting, you can obviously join your friend's world or they can join yours, but you will have to complete a significant amount of the actual tutorial and basically the starter island first. You won't be able to invite your friends to your world until you've unlocked and completed the bridge. This will then also eventually unlock the teleportals that you can use to go around from your own village to the different ones that will be placed in set places on the map. Again, this is something you'll need lots of amity for eventually, as it costs around 30 to go ahead and activate each time you find one. But once activated, I do believe they should be ready to use anytime you want. Once you've made your way to the mainland, you'll notice just beyond, apart from the first little ruins that you've got to now repair and rebuild, there'll be a special skull kind of statue, and this is where you can set your code, invite your friends to your world, or hopefully go and join others. All in all, and I wasn't maybe rushing, but it took me about 4 hours maybe before I could actually get to this stage. So that's something you might want to bear in mind. There should be a menu pop up, or it will be in the menus itself under multiplayer, how you can restrict players, basically stopping any randoms from griefing you, so they won't be able to place down any decorative items, mess around with any of your converting stations, or basically do anything that would maybe harm your Let's Play. And slightly back to my point, there's lots of stuff going on. You can always look up more details about the resources that you find, but yeah, keep going to the journal as well as the field order and double checking what you need. I did find on PC at the moment that the field order can't be really used unless you're using a mouse, as it just wasn't cycling through some of the stuff properly. If there's a resource that you haven't seen yet, something like cob or a certain kind of fruit to help grow your colossi tree, then you simply do need to unlock either a new area or utilise one of the converting stations, i.e. you can get cob once you start placing down the compost maker. And some of the seeds you need to get one of the bigger upgrades for your colossi tree, you won't get until you get to the mainland, or at least that's where they started sprouting for me. There are a lot of other little side quest buildings that will pop up, or ruins you'll come across as well, and some of these you'll need actually to discover to progress. Also worth noting, Tyle's hut here needs some fence pieces. I actually got a bunch of them as a reward for completing an earlier mission. So before you start crafting too many items, double check that some of the other quests and missions you've got might actually help you complete your next quest or your next rebuild of a ruin that you'll come across. And some quests and NPCs won't appear until you've got to a certain stage as well, so again, that's something to bear in mind. Keep checking your map and icons. All really obvious stuff, but I would say this game doesn't always highlight something brand new as well as maybe it could do. There's no marker or indication to say, hey, you're now starting to grow cotton inside or close to your colossi tree. The markers didn't necessarily pop up that I had a new quest line with some new handy NPCs down at the coast. It was only when I cycled through some more missions I saw it pop up. It's the worst feeling getting stuck in a game not knowing where to go or what to craft next, but yeah, I think the job is nearly there with this game. It just needs a little bit more finesse with some of it. And of course some of it's worth and just fun working out yourself. And yes, I've left it to last because you don't actually get hold of one until you've got to the main island, but if you're looking for a mount, this is how you get it. Once you've gone and spoken to a few NPCs, after you've completed the bridge, you'll basically come across this stable. You need to rebuild the stable, and then you can go ahead and press the down button or D-pad on the control pad, and it will bring your little donkey. They're really rapid, really good, and I'm definitely going to be using these a lot. Doesn't look like I can do much combat or anything, purely maybe just moving around. And at the moment it does look like these are the only real big mounts in the game that you'll be using. So hopefully my tips today haven't been too spoilerish. They've just give you a brief rundown of how to play the game in the early stages. I've got many more advanced guides and location guides about where to find certain stuff. I'm going to be going over all the individual converting stations, how to unlock them, and of course all the new gear that you'll be able to unlock eventually too. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you got the notification bell dinged, and I'll see you in a live stream or my Let's Plays of Tales of AGHASBA very soon. Bye bye.